What's going on, folks? Clemson versus Syracuse. Man, this is one of the most exciting matchups of week 5. ACC matchup. Clemson is 2-2. They should have been 3-1 in the season. Syracuse is 4-0. But this is going to be the first game of the season where Syracuse will be tested. Now, Clemson, they'll be coming into this game very pissed off because of how they lost last Saturday against Florida State. Syracuse, especially their QB, Garrett Schrader, he's going to come in with this game with a chip on his shoulder because he has not forgotten when Syracuse squandered a 21-7 lead last year in their last meeting. And that game, they were both undefeated. But I think that overall, Clemson is the better team. Syracuse, they are 7-point favorites. But I picked Clemson to win this game by 3 or 4 points. So Clemson will win this game either 31-27 or 31-28. I feel that Clemson's defense will make a stop in the last 3 minutes of the game. I expect both quarterbacks, and I think that both quarterbacks will have a good game. But I feel that Clemson's defense at the end will come out on top and earn their first win in the ACC conference since they lost to Duke and they lost to Florida State. So, yes, it's going to be on the road. Carrier Dorm is going to be rocking. But it's a fun matchup. I just think that Clemson is going to come away with a victory on this one. Now, here is my partner Avery on what she has to say about this particular game.
This week, we are going to talk about a really underrated matchup, Clemson against Syracuse. This is a really great matchup. You have Syracuse favored early on. However, this game is so tight that Clemson was actually favored yesterday. Now you have Syracuse being favored by a margin of 7 points. The over-under is 53, but this is a really interesting matchup for both teams. You have Clemson that are 2-2. They've already lost 2 games against ACC opponents, Duke and Florida State. You have Syracuse, which are 4-0 and are starting conference play. And a win for either team can be a huge bump, not only to the longevity of how the season is going to go for them, but also where they can be in the rankings as far as AP or coaches poll. With Clemson, their 4 games have been really a roller coaster ride. They started off their season playing Duke. They lost in a very, very unusual fashion of not necessarily a blowout, but they were very overmatched by Duke Blue Devils, and they lost 28-7. They won their next 2 games, but last week against Florida State, it was a great overtime game, but they just couldn't pull it out. And this week, Clemson is going to need to get all those pieces together to see what they can do against the Syracuse Orangemen. Will Shipley has been a great asset to the Clemson Tigers this year. Last week, he ran ragged over the Seminoles, and they're going to need Shipley to put in all of that work against Syracuse. On the other side, Syracuse running back LaQuint Allen is ready for his breakout game. Syracuse coach Dino Babers is ready for Allen to break out. And it's going to be a very good game because both these defenses, Clemson and Syracuse, haven't allowed more than 100 yards yet. So these running backs could be the real key in this game. Not only that, but their offenses are very stellar as well. You have a total offense of 474.3 yards for the Clemson Tigers, and you have a whopping 507 5.8 yards for Syracuse. Their total yards for passing as well as rushing, nearly 300 yards passing, well over 200 yards rushing for both teams. But the key is going to be that defense, that rushing defense is probably going to be the key for both teams during this game. Other key players to look out for is Damon Alford. This wide receiver, 17 receptions so far, 247 yards, 1 touchdown for Syracuse. But also, you have the Clemson quarterback, Cade Kublik. So far, he's had 976 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This is going to be, I think, a close game with the over-under being 53 points. I think it could be high scoring in the high to low 30s, but I think you're going to see some really good defensive stops, and it's probably going to be in that rushing core. I'm going to give this to Syracuse. I think Syracuse is going to go 5-0, although I do see Clemson as being the better team. Clemson has had way too many chances to take out teams, to overplay teams, and they just haven't done it, especially since they lost. Their 2 losses are against ACC conferences. So losing to Duke and definitely losing to Florida State really needs to turn this around. But I think Syracuse is going to bring everything they have. They are playing at home, and playing at home is a really great key, especially in college football. I'm going to give this to Syracuse. I'm going to say Syracuse 28-24. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think it's really going to be the rushing defense of each team that really solidifies their win. I think a win for Syracuse propels them into the top 25. However, if they lose, I still see them as being kind of a thorn in the rest of the ACC teams, because for both teams, the rest of their schedules are ACC conference matchups, and they can really cause problems for other ACC teams looking to get that ACC championship as well as being into that playoff. So for Saturday at 12 p.m., Clemson versus Syracuse, I'm going to give this to Syracuse 28-24, but I think this is going to be a really great game. And definitely look out for both teams' running backs. Will Shipley for Clemson and LeQuint Allen for Syracuse.